think about this. Every time you create something, does it turn out the way you thought it was going to? Doesn't matter what you do in business or relationships, it always turns out a little different. And I think unless we decide to participate with a choice, will whatever comes to us, will it be gain?
You know, when I reflect back on my life, and particularly when I was young, I see a guy that saw life as wins and losses with no gray area in between. Yes, I was competitive, and yes, I loved to win. So when I lost, oh boy, I did that a lot, by the way. I wasn't happy, and it usually didn't go over very well for me, or quite frankly, anyone around me. And if that sounds like you, well, I have the guest for you today. So welcome James Heppner to the show. He's the founder and creator of Weekly Wins and Losses, and James helps people in their journey to embrace all of life, both wins and losses equally. And we'll see if he can fix me. And he describes himself as a self-help hacker and strategist. We know this conversation is going to be packed with good stuff as a result. So, James, welcome to the True Man Podcast.
That's lovely. Hey, thanks for having me on this show. And by the way, when you said, let's see if he can fix me, I listened to, right? I'm like, oh my goodness, man.
Tongue in cheek.
It's so funny because oftentimes, just relate with us, man. How often don't we think there's something wrong with us when we apparently are losing? But it's like we try anything, and it's not like you said. It's not if, it's when. So when I lost, when we try something, we set ourselves up for the probability of either winning or losing, and the gray space in between. But that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
And I always use the term fix rather loosely and sarcastically, quite honestly. I know some people use it seriously, but listen, James, there is so much garbage encircling us today that I feel like it's just really congested our ability to do life with any level of balance whatsoever. But how do we as men do that without getting into these win-loss shouting matches that are permeating our society these days? That's a big question, I know. But
it sounds like you want to answer it.
Well, listen, I think, it's interesting. I had a plumber over at the house the other day, and I was fresh off a phone conversation. So I said to these two gentlemen, as men, how are you? What's going on in your life right now? Are you feeling it? I mean, there's a lot going on, and these guys and I almost didn't expect it. I mean, they just came undone, right? Like here, I am, all this information just started trickling out. And I think a lot of people are feeling that. And so that's why I asked the question, I guess.
No, I love that. It's great. It's a great, I can just feel the energy. So I'm like, hey, we're going to let you kind of share. How, right? Or, it's such a great question. Gosh, you know what? In today's world, it seems like, man, men take a hard turn away from pain. They like to do an end run around pain because apparently pain is dangerous. Ask yourself, as a man, you make something dangerous, that's going to be the thing that bullies you around. You make losing dangerous. Ask yourself, how are you going to want to be courageous and take action on something, an idea, an innovation? Perhaps you buy your sweetie a gift, and you're not sure if she'd like to wear this. Maybe it's your favorite lingerie. Who knows? I don't know. A dress. I don't know. A pair of shoes. And you're like, maybe if I give this, it might not go the way that I want. And so that's the fear of a loss. And what do we do if we don't build the inner musculature to be able to onboard, being able to glean and gain from a loss equally as you do from a win? We stop taking action. We just be like, well, I don't know what she wants anyway. Really what we're doing, frankly, most often is we're anxious about the response because we're going to feel like we're not enough and we're failures. And when in essence, a loss is just news. Why is it that we become so proficient at taking news and turning it into bad news? Think about it.
Fear, right?
News just comes. News is information.
Boy, yeah.
Right. And when you look at news information, I got a lot of respect for the media, let's be honest, and they're incentivized to sell us fear. Now, being afraid of fear, right? Being afraid of fear is the problem. And when we're afraid that how we would like it to go is not going to churn out. Ask yourself, by the way, if you give a gift, a pair of shoes or something to your wife, what are you doing this for? For you or for her? You're doing it for her. Would you not say, as a man, you do the inner work to be able to onboard whatever response she gives? Or are we slave drivers? Do we have to say, you have to give us the outcome that we want? How dare you not make me feel worth like something? How dare you make me return this? What is a man? Is a man that shallow and that threatened? And is that a man that shaken? Why does a man not, for example, I have here my podcasting on the other side, you can't see, but I have this vestibule, and there's a shelf at the very top. And at the shelf at the very top is a whole assortment of gifts that I bought for my wife that I think she will like. And I give it to her random time.
I love how you said they're on the shelf.
They're on the shelf. I keep the receipts. And here's why, guys. I keep the receipts because, half of the stuff goes back. And sometimes 3/4 goes back. The only thing is, I had an intuition. I thought maybe she'd like it. So I buy it for her. And you know what? When she doesn't like it, no problem. You know what that makes me go? I get to try another thing. Isn't it the good news that we get to try? Think about it, man. If you have a business, if you don't try new things, what's going to come of you? What's going to become of any growth in your business? Nothing.
Boy.
If you can't safely onboard the losses of your life, you will not take courageous action towards new things because you are very afraid that you will lose. And guess what being afraid of losing looks like? You start denying the facts that life is win, loss, or draw. Then you're going to turn your business into an Enron. What does that look like? These people didn't want to see the news that apparently their business wasn't performing as good as they thought they were. So what did they do? We're Harvard grads. Let's take all of what evidence reveals and let's smear over it and say we're better than that, right? Let's deny the truth. Ask yourself, reality is reality. Evidence is evidence. Why not participate with evidence? Why live in a fantasy world? What does that help? So go ahead.
Wow. No, I was just going to say, truth bombs just going off everywhere here. And I had to laugh when you mentioned Enron. So, because my wife and I actually lived in Houston, Texas at the time of the Enron debacle. And my wife actually worked for a sister company of Enron. And it was both a sad and fascinating time to be in Houston because, when you talk about, and I find myself talking about this topic of truth more often. And boy, you talk about denial of the truth. And as a result, many lives were destroyed, disrupted. There were some senior executives that just parked their Mercedes-Benz down at the end of a dark alley and took their lives as a result of this. I mean, it was very catastrophic, and it was really a result of people not facing truth. So anyway, that just like popped into my head the minute you said Enron.
No, I love that. Yeah, and that's such a sad. It's such a sad awakening. All that I happen to know is awakening can happen when we decide it must.
Yeah.
If we choose to kick the can down the line, gentlemen, what happens to kicking the can down the line? Sometimes we'll eke out a living. Sometimes we'll even be successful. Sometimes we'll have these pseudo feelings of fulfillment.
Yeah.
What I tell you won't work, though, is if it works for you, for your life, who it won't work for is your children, because your children are going to deal with their truth bombs and yours. Any cans you kick down the road, the price will be paid. At some point in time, the price will be paid. Look at COVID. COVID scared the bejeebies out of people. And honestly, they stay at the core of, and just watch society. Why is it that the collective side society all orchestrated around something? And we're like, what is this undertow? Medical professionals were saying certain things, but there seemed to be an undertow and a desire for this thing to continue. And honestly, I can only say it like this. Society was feeling threatened that we as a collective weren't progressing fast enough. Think about how many cans we've kicked down the road to make that happen. Now, it's one thing for me to say, personally, I'm not progressing enough, but that we can all come to common agreement that we're not progressing fast enough. There are so many things that have kicked down the road, and one day, surprise, and gentlemen, you kick the can down the road, these cans pop, these cans come into your life at the worst time.
Yeah.
At a time when you're like, Enron, think about these people. It's a sad story.
Yeah.
You know, you say, Mercedes, drive down, take your own life. Guess what?
Mm-hmm.
The truth is out. If you've kicked it down for a long time, it can seem unbearable. And unfortunately, some people are at the end. And what happens, there's not an alcohol store open. The cocaine store isn't fresh anymore. So you just take your Mercedes, you drive down because everything comes crushing down. Here's the thing. The good news is that you don't have to turn news into bad news. The good news, you can take news and let it serve you, utilize the news, let it show you where you're at. Why, when you get a test score in high school at 72, why is that the bad news? Why is that not tell you exactly evidence of where you're at? Why is seeing clearly the reality of the situation, why is that not so deeply grounding? Why isn't that beautiful? In high school, I had a 23% average in grade 12 math, and I couldn't figure out how and I didn't understand formulas because I had skipped so much school. I wasn't a school person. And I'll tell you something.
We need to hang out.
Yeah, I needed a 95% of my final exam to pass so I could graduate. And I'll never forget, there I was studying my studying my butt off the final weekend before the exam, and I could not figure out how the formulas were to be done. So what I did one day, and I had like 4 hours before the exam, I remember Monday morning, was up really late, and I'm like, James, you got to take all the formulas, you got to create your own. I'm like, create my own. I'm like, I don't, and I created my own. I went into the exam, I wrote the exam. The professor after the exam looked at me. We walked down, he had marked it already. He said, I have no idea how you did it. I didn't understand a thing what you did, but you got 100%. And so when we look at it, if I had taken 23% average as bad news, it just gave me a measuring stick of what I needed to do. Why not let it serve us? Like, oh, thank you so much. Reality loves us more than it cares. Love more, care less. It's a number. It's static. Gentlemen, look at your bank account. I dare you to. Right now, or not, perhaps after this, look at your bank account balance and see what it feels like to look at it. But then I dare you to go check it 2 minutes later and see if it's moved. What does it help you to look at your bank account balance? It doesn't move. It's just the numbers are numbers. Let reality stand for what it is. It can stand on its own 2 feet very well. Thank you so much. And then to your point on, you talk to these plumbers, right? These people. Society is so overfed. We have been force fed. But we're supposed to swallow this and just push it away. And that's the answer. And guess what? Society is saying no more. It's beginning to happen.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there's a groundswell of it, but you know, it's kind of interesting. You talk about test scores. I mean, you know, for a lot of people, the challenge is now you went, well, 72% is not good enough. I got to figure out how to get to 100. A lot of people, including myself, like, well, 72% actually for a large part of my life, I would have been happy with 72%, but 72%, I'm sitting there thinking, well, I'm just not, I can't figure it out. I'm not going to get there. And I, you know, I don't know what to do. And so you just get stuck. And that's a large percentage of people, unfortunately. So how do we get these people unstuck when they're stuck at 72% and get them moving in the direction of 100 like you did? What do you think that the trick there is?
Yeah, you know, and I should probably just qualify. So just back to the story, my average throughout the year was 23%. And so the way that they scored the final exam and the weight of it, I needed to get a 95% or greater so that my average would be above 50. So I just want to make slight inference here. Perfection is the lowest standard, gentlemen. Perfection is the lowest standard. The only thing is, and I was raised in a home and I have a very perfectionist way of being. I have a lot of commands and demands of myself, like all the time. However, I've matured that forward and I'm like, okay, I know I got to deliver and I want to deliver. And so listen to the words. I know I have to deliver and I want to. So there's a lot of I's in there. I want and I need to, I must. And what's fascinating about the I, think about the story. Perhaps this answers your question. The story of my final exam. I knew I had to get 95 or above. I was faced with the pressure of perfection and getting 100%. How often in society don't we bend to, or don't we say that who we are on the inside, the eye of the eye, isn't that important, and just follow social narratives? Just get on Facebook and like, get on Instagram and like who cares? You're wasting your time. It's not real relation most often, right? And so how do we get to moving the needle forward? In my opinion, the way we do this is we stay tethered to who we actually are. And there comes a moment, I was forced into that situation in that exam, that I said, listen, if I follow how they mapped out how to do these formulas for the entire grade 12 year, I don't know how to come to the result of, and I was stress testing it against their answer. I don't know how to do this. I couldn't do it. So finally I said, what can I rely on? And I came back to me. So in business, society says, do it like this, do it like this. In a relationship, books say, do it like this, do it like this. You have a special relationship with your sweetie with you with your business. Invariably, if we buy books, if we go to seminars, we hire coaches, could care less, all helpful. But if ever we take what's imprinted on our heart and how we drive and we just follow the status quo, like the work that I do, I help people get specific. And I think you do the exact same thing, help people get specific in who they are. We got to find out who is in there and then take and activate and ignite that person and go beyond the fear. If I bring who I am, if I hadn't done that in my math exam, I would not have passed grade 12. I wouldn't have. And I would have to do that. And back in the day, I would have had to do that grade over. That's how the school that I went to, a private school. If you fail, if you don't get, you have to do the whole grade over again. I hated school. It was my worst nightmare. So I was forced to be faced with, you listen, it has to be almost perfect, but perfect based on their standards doesn't work. I need to, again, need to lean in fully to who I am and actually forget, for there's that moment, like I said, 4 hours before, I had to forget all of what had been indoctrinated into me and go with who I knew for me to be. And all of a sudden out came a formula. Like, honestly speaking, I basically took, and this is not like kudos to me, you know, and I'm trying to stay humble here because I do own a calculator. I'm not that good at math. Okay. But I got 100% in the hardest math in grade 12, and I didn't follow their formula at all. I constructed. How is this possible? Gentlemen, we all have this ability. You do the same way. We all do. Yes, coaches, books, events, they all help. But here's the thing. Unless we tap into that, even if we do our thing the way that we're drawn to it, unless we tap into that there is a chance, and let's say probability and a high, that we will either win, lose, or draw. And if you can't face all those, and if you can't face them well, meaning that your inner musculature reveals that if you lose, or if you're win, it's gain. A man decides it's win-win, regardless of what it's gain. But the key thing is we don't turn a loss into positive. We keep the facts intact. It's not positive hyperbole. We don't play the game like this. We let reality be reality. And then we celebrate the good news and go like, I know what to do. Which man doesn't want to know what to do now?
Yeah, well, everybody wants to know what to do now, you know. And the funny thing of it is, you know, listening to you talk about this, I mean, the challenge I think with most guys is they're going along with the herd, right? They're going along with the herd, and that's a dangerous game to play right now, because if you can't think on your own, you know, you're going to have some challenges, and that really comes down to, I think, like you're saying, knowing your authentic self, because you have to know your true self in order to deactivate the false self, which is, you know, the bottom line is we're constantly at war with the false self. And so, you know, but having that peace of mind to not wear a mask and be authentic and keep it real and know, my challenge was, I love this whole math thing, was it when I was going to school, I want to know why. Nobody would tell me why. They just said, do the formula. And I'd be like, why? I don't want to do the formula until I know like why. And everybody's like, do the formula. And it caused me to check out, to be perfectly honest. I wanted to know the why, and it caused me to check out. And then, right, like a lot of guys would do, like, well, like if nobody wants me to understand why, I just kind of check out a why. And then you just kind of check out, right? So I guess it's not important. And you just go along with the herd.
Well, I think there's more people like you. I can relate. The reason I checked out of school for many reasons, but part of what you're saying primarily was one of them. Our kids today, I got a 17-year-old and 15-year-old. I've been married to my wife for 22 years, together for 27. Our kids go to school where they inform children how this is applicable to real life.
Yeah.
The problem we have is really just apparently the current system oftentimes just learn this, and the child says, but why? And the teacher goes, well, you don't need to know that. You just need to do this. Like, what does that help? Right.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help with your problem solving skills at all. And I think what's interesting, and I'm sure you feel the same way and appreciate this, is that, at 52 years old, I'm probably about as naturally curious as I've ever been in my life. Like I can't ask enough questions, and I don't care what somebody thinks of. I mean, I care what they think, but I mean, I'm going to keep asking questions. I want to understand the why. And that's the beauty of doing a podcast, right? We get to try to figure out why. And 2 + 2 = 4. Well, why? I'm curious as to why, and so, but I love that, because I think what it is just a tremendous gift to be able to think on your own rather than go along with the herd, because the herd's not always right.
The herd's not always right. You know what's interesting is the herd has a place. When I think about school teachers, and gosh, it makes sense. The institutional structure informs and educates institutional service people, teachers included.
Yep.
And honestly speaking, what a gift. What a gift. Like, who doesn't want to have flush toilet? Who doesn't want to have running water? Municipal structure, that's institutional structure. The education system, brilliant, awesome. And actually, there are some people who actually really enjoy working with inside a structure. Awesome. All the power to you. I'm not one of them, but we thank you like you thank us. We work together. It's not one or the other. It's one with the other. So the way I look at this is I think about, so to your point, you asked the question why. There's a little pupil there in that desk, just like me. I asked why. And I was a stumbling, stammering fool back in the day. And I still am a fool to a large degree because I'm just human, right? And so we ask why. And so what does the teacher do? The teacher says, yeah, but the institutional structure taught us to teach like this. And the why question wasn't really ever informed. We weren't informed how to deal with that. We have 27 students, pupils in front of us, so we can contort around different uniqueness. Now, I have a son who's high functioning autistic. And I'll tell you something, finding a school where the school literally followed through with their promise of our teacher wraps around each student was very difficult, but we found. And when you find that, think about this. What you're talking about seems to me is when a child asks a question, any question is wanted. Any question is needed. No question is dangerous. Questions are inquiry. And inquiry not so we need to give answer. Like, think about this, gentlemen. How many of you gain your strength from the no? I need to know. Most of us say, well, of course, and that makes sense. The first half of our life, everything we do is based on answer. I need to know this, and then she'll say yes to marrying me. I need to do this, and then the bank will say yes to giving me a mortgage. I need to follow this, and then they'll keep me here at the job site or in business. The government will leave me alone if I do this. So actually, seeking strength through the I know and through the answer is a beautiful season of life. The only thing that happens, there will come a point in time, for me, it happened when we had our high functioning autistic boy. There will come a part in your life, and it happens to each one of us. Doesn't matter, men, women, everyone, where something will erupt in your world where it's too big. You can't manage it with your constructs anymore. The things that you have in your repertoire, it doesn't check out anymore. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you hit a new level of threshold and you sit here going, no matter how I strive towards the answer, the further from feeling at peace I now move. I go further from, you're like, oh shit, it's worse and worse. Sometimes depression sets in. Sometimes like, what is it? I feel like I'm numb. What is this? And it's a very decentering state of life, just like Icarus. Flying up. It's a beautiful journey, up, 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 beautiful, man. First half of life, up, 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 all through answer, all through like, I'm bringing certainty here. All of a sudden something happens, you're like, shit, I don't know, this just is random. I can't change this. My son, you're not going to change the diagnosis. You're not going to change his life. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I had to reckon. So here's the thing. What do we do in the second half of life? If we're wise, we don't say, oh, that's the problem. Answer seeking is the problem. What we do is we integrate, say answer is needed. Institutional structure has answer for things very often. Answer is good, but guess what? Getting our power and strength from questions and not knowing. So the first half you get it from I know, or I'm doing everything to know. I have an example. My son, he's a coder, the 17-year-old. And so there's certain passions that I'm into, like health and certain metrics. And, I research like what specific, yogurt is best. And I'll drive 4 hours to get like sourced yogurt that's grass-fed, grass-finished, and I'll do this, or I'll import eggs from California. Dude, I live in Vancouver, Canada. I'll take them across the board. And so I'll do this work. And then my son goes, Dad, why do you do all this stuff? And I give him, and I think to myself, how can I curate and just really simplify this message down for him? So I give him like the short synopsis. I'm just trying to be helpful, right? I'm trying to just keep it simple. And then he says to me, just give me a second. You know what he does? He grabs his phone. And I'm like, oh, Rowan, there you go with your Google again. Types it in, what eggs from, and you know what? Google will, DuckDuckGo will give you medical. Googled, and he goes, the answer is this. And I'm like, you know what? It's so precious. Unless we as men get out of the way for these younger generation who they actually need to be into, like, I get my strength from answers. That's what they do. That's amazing. You and I did the same thing. We don't need to blame it, but we need to shift over at that junction. So men who are listening here, ask yourself, when has that happened for you in your life? And you're like, this is so much. What do I do with this? It's an invitation for you to move to the next season of your life. It's an invitation to be, this is the second half of life, which means if you just keep flying up and through the sun, Icarus would have died. Icarus' wings melted, just like your wings are being invited to melt. Come crashing into the sea. Can you come down? You think down is not good? Unless you have down and up. Physics, down and up, you have to have it. Without you don't have life. And so you get your strength, not just from going up in the know, but now you're more fully alive. You get it from knowing and not knowing. And most times we have a dirt road of I don't know strength, and we have a highway overdeveloped of I know, craving for certainty. I know. That's when society gets restless. That's when we lose our marbles. You got to find your strength in the I don't know. So it's like back to you. You're in the classroom. You ask the question. The teacher doesn't know. So what does the teacher do? He just focuses on what he knows, and then he shuts you up. How do you feel? I know how I felt. I basically checked out of life in school.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy. There was no fulfillment for me in school. That was just in the way of me getting to whatever season of athletic season it was.
How sad, getting in the way. Isn't that sad? Getting in the way, like that wasn't their intent.
No, it wasn't there. Absolutely not. I don't blame anybody. No. And I don't want to suggest that I do, but I always felt like, like school is in the way. It took me a long time to really wrap my arms around that. And, but that is the beauty of what you're talking about. And just kind of the beauty of where I'm at in life is I've overcome all that. And I feel much more alive as a man because I do have peace and understanding in that. But, this is where some people don't reconcile those losses, right? The losses just pile on top of losses, and they don't get to the win stage. And what I've found at this point in my life, which is just amazing, because I've been around, great people, great thought leaders, done a lot of reading, a lot of research, is that wow, being and feeling alive like is what a man should be, is it's critically important to our development. And man, life's a lot more fun when you feel alive versus, well, I've carried around all this suppressed information, hoping I never have to deal with it, and which we're really good at doing for whatever reason. So I just love this stage of life and feeling more alive, and because I have that knowledge.
Have the knowledge that seems, obviously, I mean, if you're living it, you're obviously doing it. So you don't just know it, you do it. And that's when you
Right.
really know it, right? And so I love that. It's fascinating. People often say, yeah, but a loss, that's so stinging. Like that's so hard to face. When you turn your face towards a thing that you think is sent to take you down, and you discover this thing is designed to make you live fully alive. I mean, fully alive.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, does that activate the man? The man's like, I'm unstoppable. And what I mean to say is unshakable, meaning I'm not saying that I'm a stoic, cemented into the ground, nothing can make me off balance. The man goes, finally, I return home where everything that makes me feel off balance is what gives me
Yeah.
strength. Think about it. A human being never walks on two legs at the same time. A kangaroo does, but a human, one step at a time. Man, try this. After we're done here, go for a walk. Take 3 steps forward. Put the right foot in front of the left, and in between, you transitioning from the body pressure on the left foot to the right. You're in a state of decentering. You're not balanced. As soon as you're not balanced, that's how a man gets stronger. Who do we want to become? And you think of some men, you see this, they're like, yeah, but it's not fair. And it's like, yeah, no wonder they act like, these, it's just sad. It's really sad. The guy
Yeah.
driving his Mercedes down the street, Enron, it's sad. Because here's the thing. There doesn't need to be a sting in the loss when you turn your face towards it. Turn your face towards and see what's going to happen. When you turn towards, that's worthy work.
Yeah. Listen, I now know how important embracing losses, how important that is. And Lord knows I've lost, like, I'm no different than anybody else. I've lost more than I've won in my life. But where did I really win? It was in those losses, and I didn't necessarily see it at a certain point in my life. And I think this is what's important for men to know and understand, is that they will take losses in their life, but man, the redemption that occurs as a result is an opportunity to pivot. It's an opportunity, as I always talk about, to have that comeback in your life. And it's just an opportunity to learn from something and move on. And it's one of the challenges I think our culture faces now, as we try to, and it's, to me, it's just bizarre that, kids get medals for, last place, because what are they going to walk away with? I mean, like, I'm sitting here telling you, well, I walked away with so much information from the losses that, I virtually at this stage of my life don't even remember some of the wins. They're fun to talk about, but I mean, now I see how important a loss was. And I mean, to think that we're raising kids in a culture where everybody gets a ring or a trophy or whatever, man, I don't even know what the long-term result of that is.
Well, that's a fascinating concept, because if you really consider what they're doing is they're handing out trophies, as you said so eloquently. These are participation things. And really what they're doing is really what we want to be about doing to some degree, which is we want to participate. The only thing is, what you and I are becoming aware of, and others, of course,
Yeah.
this is everywhere, that if we're participating about trying to flee the reality, which is, this is news, if we're trying to flee the existence of the evidence that's in front of us, that's what Enron did. It's how many people don't desire, think about, give my wife a gift. If we don't reconcile before we buy the gift, or before we do the business, that there's a real chance, not possibility, but probability, that our actions are going to reveal not a fantasy, what we thought it was going to be. We're going to have to die to that. Every time, think about this, every time you create something, does it turn out the way you thought it was going to? Doesn't matter what you do in business or relationships, it always turns out a little different. And I think unless we decide to participate with a choice, will whatever comes to us, will it be gain? So I love your example. Will we gain? And so in the middle, it isn't to become desensitized to emotion. It's actually to feel emotion. When you bring safety to feeling emotion, participation medals, you and I, we feel this. We're like, actually, they hand this out. You're like, hey, honey, you don't need to feel sad. You're good because you participate. We're going, yeah, you're good because you participate with making safe feeling those emotions.
Yeah.
And those emotions don't define you. They're just arrows to point you to the next proper action. That's all that they are. It's a beautiful thing, right? And so, the hero's journey looks a bit like doing courageously. What once you thought maybe you didn't want to do, and now it's like, actually, it was sent to bless me. It was sent to support me. It was sent, men, when you're needed most, you get to decide if you're going to prepare yourself to be able to show up when that matters. Because if not, everyone's going to check out of the boardroom. There's a fire happening. No one's going to know what to say, including you. Is that what you want? No. You wanted, and so oftentimes people, when they think about losses, they go, yeah, where are the wins? And again, equal gain. You got to do the work, equal gain. It seems like heavy work, but actually, it's a lot of fun because you get to poke the giant and you're like, oh my goodness, my life is opening up. And it's just becoming something that I didn't think it could. And it's like, honestly, you will probably look back at the other half of your life and think, how could I have walked past this? But be careful, gentlemen. Because unless you integrate, which means make safe that there's room for that other side of your life and allow that to come into your life, you will never transform. Integration means you bring in, you don't eliminate. Because that way you don't look at your sons and your daughters and be like, why are you guys doing answer seeking? That generation should all be doing what we're doing. That's not their stage of life. It's not needed the way that we need to do. We're at a different stage of life.
Well, and I understand that journey now. And so when I talk about goals, I talk about enjoying that journey while you're on that. Now, let's face it, while you're on the road to goals, sometimes that journey can be a little bit rocky, but it's important information. I've got a couple of championship rings that, I have when I went to college. It was really the first time where I was in a team sport where we won at a very high level. I don't even remember the games. I can tell you how many games we won because it's on the ring. I don't remember the games. I remember the journey. I remember the practices. I remember showing up at 5:00 in the morning to open up the gym. I remember being in the locker room and the conversations that went on. I remember the preparation. I don't remember a lot of the games. And that's life, man.
That's the good news. That you get to prepare. That's the good news. Not prepare in fear, but prepare for like, hey, what's coming? Who knows? The preparing for the unexpected. I got a little story to share for you. This story about this guy named Pip. Pip is a drug dealer. He's not a nice person. He's a good person, but he doesn't do some nice things. He's killed a couple of people, and Pip is often concerned. There's this talk about, well, someday when you die, you might go somewhere. And Pip's really concerned about where he might go because people talk about heaven and hell, and he thinks, I don't want to go to that burning place, hell. I wouldn't want to go there. So one day he's in this gun battle, and he's always told himself that perhaps there will be a moment when the shot goes off and he's checked himself off and am I still alive? Oh, he's still here. This time, no, it's different. He goes, it's black for a bit. And then all of a sudden there's somebody standing beside him. There's just this person standing in white robes. He's like, this is interesting. He's like, oh shit. I committed all these bad acts. I didn't I didn't convert to anything. I'm just a horrible person, convert, whatever it is. He goes, I didn't say sorry for any of this stuff. I didn't have remorse. So here's the thing. Pip's like, I just need to ask for forgiveness right now and see if this person will let me exit or not go to the place where I think I'm going. So he's going for a bit of a walk with this. So this angel basically says, let's go for a walk. And he's like, oh, I'm going to stay. And he goes, well, wait a minute. I know how to manipulate. I've done that lots in my life. Perhaps if I say nothing, you never know. I might just sneak in. But he goes, I don't know if it's, and he's contemplating also. And the angel goes, we're here. And Pip goes, here? Looks around. He goes, oh shit. I think I lucked out. Pearly gates. They walk through, and the angel says, "Listen, this is all for you." And Pip goes, "For me?" And Pip goes, "Holy smokes, he got it wrong. He got the wrong dude." But I'm not saying nothing. So he's walking this angel, and everywhere he looks, everyone's winning. People playing sports, they're all winning. Everyone's winning. Yay! There's gambling. He likes gambling. Casinos, blackjack. Oh, he loves that stuff. Everyone's winning. And the angel goes, "Guess what? This is all for you. Enjoy." So he sees dancing on the streets. Everyone, it's utopia. It's amazing. The angel gives him a card and says, "Listen, Pip, I'll let you go now, but if you ever need me, just call me." Pip's like, "I'd love to." And so Pip goes in, sure enough, wins the first round of blackjack, VLTs. Oh my goodness, ka-ching, ka-ching, plays sport. Oh, he's never had, it's amazing for about 2 weeks. The third week, he's like, "I don't know if I want to go downstairs anymore." Like, he lives up in this tower, it's beautiful, everything is amazing. One of his friends calls him and says, "Hey, how come I haven't seen you for a bit?" Pip's like, "Yeah, I just kind of been sleeping in, like, these excuses. I don't know." And his friend goes, "No, you got to come down. We got like a new level of winning." And Pip's like, "A new level?" So he goes down. He's like, "This is going to be awesome." So he goes down. He's there for about 2 hours. All of a sudden, he's had it. He can't take it. And the friend looks over, and Pip's like, "Oh," and something comes from him. He can't take it. He takes his hands, his palms, and he flips the blackjack table. People are looking, "What's your problem?" He walks out. He's like, "I've had it. I can't." And he's like, he just can't take it. So he reaches in his pocket and he calls the angel and says, "Listen, I think there's a problem." Angel goes, "Problem? What do you mean problem?" Pip goes, "You don't know about me. Let me tell you about my life." Angel goes, "Okay," tells him about his life. And then the guy goes, "So I'm in the wrong place." Angel goes, "Where do you think you are?" Pip goes, "Well, I'm in heaven." Angel goes, "You're in hell." Hell is when you think that winning is what you want, all of which, listen, unless there's risk, unless we know we have the potential to lose, we're not engaged.
Yeah.
Because we want to be about the work of feeling who will be inside, regardless of outcome. Who will come to the surface? Who am I really? And when you realize who you really are, it's when you activate yourself.
Wow. I might have to steal that story. I kind of liked it. James, as we wrap up here today, let everybody know how they can find you and get a hold of you. And we'll put this in the show notes, of course, but how can everybody get a hold of you?
Mm-hmm. Well, gosh, there's some people here on this talk that you probably are curious about this. You want to do some work. You can reach out to me directly. You want to do some one-on-one direct work. And again, these are for very hungry souls. If you want the real McCoy experience, you want to go deep, you want to really build up musculature, one-on-one work, go to my website, www.jamesheppner.com. So that's spelled JAMESHEPPNER. And here's a gift for all of the listeners. I invite you every week. I have a no charge noon weekly wins and losses community call. People from around the world come, and it's just breathtaking to see them turn their face towards the thing that they thought was designed to send them down. Everyone has a chance to share both one win and one loss of their week. Two primary. And when you do this, you turn your face towards. It's at the end of the week. So you close your week off. Instead of kicking cans down the line, you just face it. And you'll see people just their eyes open up being like, actually, this guy said this guy said this. And here's what we don't do. We don't change the facts. We don't make positive thinking bullshit out of what reality is. Yeah. Your marks at Enron look like this. That's the fact. Wow. Sit with that. Feels nice, doesn't it? You don't have to you feel stretching. The stretch in the real time is when your shoulders get wider right in real time. That feels good if you let it. So every week, noon, no charge, live community call. I invite all your listeners. So if you want to engage there, go to weeklywinsandlosses.com. So just spell it out the way that it sounds, weeklywinsandlosses.com. Scroll down the page, you'll see a little link that says join this Friday's call. Click there, put your name in. You come onto the call, you get a little Zoom link. You'll come, you'll share, you'll meet people from different parts of the world. And guess what? You get to end your week with power, and you get to start your next week with power, because unless you clean up what you think is sent to take you down, and you realize the game that it is, by keeping the facts intact, you're not going to start your week with courageous action. It won't happen.
There you go. James, thanks for coming on. Had a great time talking about wins and losses. And typically I don't. So there you go. You killed it.
Oh, my friend, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I loved it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Okay, take care.